1. Long relationship history. My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how a 12-year relationship collapsed in a single week. I met Emily Carter when we were 19. We were both freshmen at a small state university, two awkward kids trying to pretend we had everything figured out. She had this quiet confidence about her, not loud, not flashy, but steady. The kind of person who always knew where she was going, even if she didn't know exactly how she'd get there. We started as friends. Late-night study sessions turned into shared meals. Shared meals turned into long walks. Long walks turned into the kind of conversations you only have when you're young and believe love can fix anything. By the end of sophomore year, we were inseparable. After graduation, we moved into a tiny apartment with thin walls and unreliable heating. We didn't have money, but we had plans. Emily wanted to work in marketing. I wanted to build my own tech startup. We promised each other we'd stick together through the struggle phase. We were convinced that if we could survive that apartment, we could survive anything. Years passed. Jobs changed. Friends came and went. We adopted a golden retriever named Milo. We attended weddings together and joked that we were basically married anyway. We shared passwords, bank accounts, calendars, everything. We knew each other's coffee orders, childhood traumas, and secret insecurities. 12 years is a long time. It's long enough to watch someone grow into a completely different person and still feel like you know them better than anyone else ever could. At least, that's what I thought. 2. Sacrifices made. When I decided to pursue my startup full-time, it wasn't a small risk. I quit a stable job with benefits, a predictable salary, and a clear career path. Emily was the one who told me to do it. She said, "If you don't try, you'll regret it forever." So I tried. For 2 years, I barely made any money. Emily carried us financially. She worked overtime. She took on extra projects. She postponed vacations. She cut back on everything: clothes, nights out, even small luxuries she used to enjoy. I noticed, of course. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes. I saw how she'd fall asleep on the couch while answering emails. Every time I offered to get a real job again, she'd shake her head and tell me she believed in me. And I believed in us. When her father got sick, I returned the favor. I put my company on pause and moved with her back to her hometown for 6 months. I drove her to hospital visits. I handled the paperwork. I held her when she broke down in the kitchen at 2 a.m. We sacrificed for each other constantly. Not because we had to, but because that's what partners do. Or at least, that's what I thought partners did. 3. Deep trust. By year 10, our relationship felt unshakable. We had weathered financial stress, illness, family drama, and the slow erosion that routine can cause. Nothing had broken us. We didn't check each other's phones. We didn't question late nights at work. If Emily said she was meeting coworkers, I believed her. If I said I had client meetings, she never doubted me. Trust wasn't something we talked about. It was just there, like oxygen. Emily used to say, "You're my safe place." And I believed her. I thought I was the one person she would never lie to. The one person she'd always come back to, no matter what. We talked about buying a house, about kids, about finally making it official with a wedding instead of just joking about it. We even looked at rings once, laughing nervously like teenagers again. I never imagined that the thing I trusted most in my life could disappear without warning. 4. Ignored red flags. Looking back, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Emily started working later. At first, it made sense. She had just been promoted. More responsibility meant longer hours. But the late nights became routine. Dinners went cold on the stove. Weekend plans were canceled last minute. She guarded her phone more carefully. Not in an obvious way, just subtle shifts. Flipping it face down. Taking it with her everywhere. Smiling at messages she didn't explain. I asked once casually, "Who's that?" She laughed and said, "Just work stuff." And I let it go. There was a new coworker she mentioned often, Ryan Mitchell. At first, he was just the new guy. Then he was Ryan and I had to fix a client disaster. Then he was Ryan thinks I should apply for this leadership program. His name kept appearing in our conversations like a background character slowly stepping into the spotlight. But I trusted her. So I ignored the quiet voice in my head that whispered something wasn't right. 5. Sudden doubt. The doubt didn't explode. It crept in. One night, Emily came home past midnight. She smelled different, not like perfume, just unfamiliar. She seemed distant, distracted. When I hugged her, she hugged me back, but it felt automatic. I asked how her evening was. She hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. Just work, she said. That pause haunted me. Over the next few days, I noticed how she typed faster when I walked into the room, how she smiled at her phone and then quickly locked it, how she seemed both present and somewhere else at the same time. For the first time in 12 years, I felt like an outsider in my own relationship, and that feeling terrified me more than anything. 6. Discovery. I didn't want to snoop. I hated the idea of becoming that person. But one evening, Emily left her laptop open on the kitchen table. A notification popped up. I wasn't even trying to look. It just appeared. It was a message from Ryan. I can't stop thinking about last night. My stomach dropped. My hands started shaking before my brain could even process what I was seeing. I clicked the message. I told myself I needed context. That maybe it was harmless. It wasn't. The thread went back months. Late-night confessions. Inside jokes. Hotel reservations during business trips. Words she hadn't said to me in years. I felt like I was reading someone else's life. The worst part wasn't the physical betrayal. It was how emotionally intimate the messages were. She told him things she hadn't told me. She shared dreams, frustrations, fears, things I thought were still ours. In that moment, 12 years collapsed into nothing but lies. 7. Emotional chaos. I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. I just sat there in silence, staring at the screen long after it had gone dark. When she walked in and saw my face, she knew. I asked one question, how long? She didn't deny it. She didn't yell. She just looked tired. 6 months, she said. 6 months of dinners together. 6 months of kisses goodbye. 6 months of I love yous that now felt poisoned. I felt rage. I felt humiliation. I felt grief, so heavy it was hard to breathe. How do you compete with someone who wasn't even supposed to exist in your story? I kept thinking about every sacrifice, every promise, every quiet moment we had shared. Were they real? Or was I the only one who believed they were? 8. Confrontation. We talked for hours. Or maybe minutes. Time felt distorted. She said she felt lost. That she didn't know who she was anymore. That Ryan made her feel seen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask if 12 years of loving her wasn't enough to make her feel seen. She insisted it just happened. That she never planned to hurt me. That she still cared about me deeply. But caring isn't loyalty. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer. And in that silence, I understood everything. 9. Reality setting in. The next morning felt surreal. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened. Cars passed. Birds chirped. The sun rose. Inside our apartment, everything felt broken. She cried. I didn't. I think I was in shock. We discussed therapy. We discussed working through it. But every time I looked at her, I saw the messages. The lies. The version of her I didn't know. Trust, once shattered, doesn't magically rebuild itself. And I realized something terrifying. I could forgive her one day, maybe, but I would never again feel safe the way I once did. And safety was everything to me. 10. Separation. 2 weeks later, she moved out. Packing 12 years into cardboard boxes is brutal. Every object has a memory attached to it. The coffee mug from our first apartment. The blanket we bought on our first trip together. Milo's adoption papers. She stood in the doorway before leaving and said, I never meant for this to happen. But intentions don't undo actions. When the door closed behind her, the silence was overwhelming. The apartment felt bigger and emptier at the same time. For the first time in over a decade, I was alone. 11. Healing. The first months were the hardest. I questioned everything. My worth, my judgment, my memories. But slowly, painfully, I started rebuilding. I went to therapy. I focused on my work. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. I learned how to sit in my own company without feeling incomplete. I realized that her betrayal wasn't a reflection of my value. It was a reflection of her choices. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong. Other days I replayed old conversations in my head, searching for the moment it all went wrong. But little by little, the pain softened. 12. Lesson. 12 years taught me a lot. Love isn't just history. It isn't just shared memories or sacrifices. It's a daily choice. And when one person stops choosing it, the foundation cracks. I learned that ignoring red flags doesn't make them disappear. I learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it changes everything. But most importantly, I learned that betrayal doesn't define you. It hurts. It devastates. It reshapes your life. But it also forces you to rediscover who you are without the person you thought you couldn't live without. And sometimes, that rediscovery is the beginning of something stronger than what you lost.